The news spread faster than wildfire through the dusty lanes of Ranikhet village. Aryan Malhotra is marrying Meera Didi. One woman gasped, dropping her basket of onions. That billionaire boy from the city, another whispered, clutching her scarf to her chest. It seemed absurd, impossible, even. Aryan, a 26-year-old tech mogul known for gracing magazine covers and rubbing shoulders with world leaders, had just publicly proposed to an 80-year-old widow who sold homemade pickles for a living. And he had done it not at a press conference or a lavish event, but in the village square, in front of bewildered children, a few grazing goats, and a stunned Meera herself. She hadn't spoken for a full minute after his words echoed through the air. Meera Devi, will you marry me? Aryan stood there in a crisp ivory kurta, expression calm, eyes fixed on hers, not with irony or pity, but with something more complex. Something deeper. Meera blinked several times, unsure if the heat was playing tricks on her. She had lived a quiet, laborious life. Her days began with grinding spices, ended with aching bones, and passed in solitude. A woman of few words and fewer complaints, Meera had become a fixture of quiet dignity in the village. But Aryan Malhotra had built a billion-dollar tech empire before the age of 25. Raised in Delhi, educated abroad, and photographed more than the Prime Minister, he was the country's golden boy, handsome, intelligent, and unattached. That is, until today. The villagers watched, wide-eyed, as Meera slowly shook her head, not in refusal, but disbelief. "Why me?" she asked hoarsely, voice trembling more from confusion than age. He offered a small smile. "Because you're the most important person I've ever known." Gasps erupted all around. Children whispered. Elders exchanged worried glances. Some thought it a cruel joke, others, a publicity stunt. But the sincerity in Aryan's voice lingered in the air like incense. Meera lowered her eyes. "I'm old, Beta. What are you doing?" Aryan stepped closer. "Something I should have done a long time ago." She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. But she didn't walk away. And that was enough for the village gossip to explode. By evening, her front gate was crowded. Journalists camped outside her crumbling home, and neighbors peered through cracks in the fence. Inside, Meera sat on a faded mat, staring at the engagement ring that Aryan had placed gently on her palm, velvet box unopened. Far away in his glass mansion, Aryan scrolled through the breaking headlines without a flicker of emotion. Billionaire proposes to 80-year-old woman in shocking twist. But beneath the screen glare, in the stillness of his room, his eyes settled on an old, tattered photo tucked inside his wallet, of a much younger Meera, cradling a hungry child in her lap. The world was only just asking why star. Aryan had always known the answer. The days that followed were painted with questions. Cameras flashed outside Meera's rusted gate. News anchors speculated wildly, some calling it a publicity stunt, others a hidden scandal. Yet through the chaos, Aryan remained composed, speaking only once. It's a matter of the heart, not the headlines. Still, no one understood. Least of all Meera. She watched from her modest porch, surrounded by jasmine vines and worn slippers, as the world tried to make sense of her new reality. Her fingers trembled each time she glanced at the ring now sitting quietly in a chipped teacup, as if hiding it could make it all go away. But Aryan returned. Not once, not twice, but every morning. Dressed simply, never with guards or entourage, just himself and a quiet determination. He helped her lift water pots. Walked beside her to the temple. Sat beside her in silence, never forcing conversation, only presence. "You shouldn't be here," Meera said once, refusing to meet his eyes. "Then why aren't you asking me to leave?" he replied. She didn't answer. Because truthfully, she didn't want him to. As the village buzzed with theories, Aryan began restoring her small courtyard, fixing broken tiles, replacing the creaky door, planting marigolds by the well. Meera protested at first, but he only smiled and said, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the woman who once saved a boy she didn't know." That line froze her. "Who are you?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. But Aryan only shook his head, lips tight. Not yet. Each evening, they sat together under the neem tree, the silence between them slowly ripening into something tender. She told him about her late husband, a postman who died too young. About the years she spent surviving on borrowed sugar and stale bread. He listened, really listened, his gaze soft, as if each word filled in the missing pieces of his own life. What Mira didn't know, couldn't yet guess, was that Aryan remembered far more than she realized. That the creaky door she never locked was once his shelter on a stormy night. That the woman who now sat sipping tea beside him was the only person who had ever wrapped him in a blanket, expecting nothing in return. He had been 7. Dirty. Frightened. Lost. And Mira. She had simply opened her arms. The world saw a mismatch. He saw a debt. By the 5th day, the villagers no longer laughed. Curiosity had turned into reverence. Children began waving to Aryan, offering him mangoes and pebbles as gifts. They didn't understand the story, but they felt its truth. One night, as Aryan rose to leave, Mira looked up and said quietly, "You remind me of someone I once knew." He paused, then smiled. "Maybe that's because I've known you all my life." The wedding was quiet. Not the grand spectacle people expected from a billionaire groom. There were no chandeliers, no designer gowns, no velvet carpet rolled across the village square. Just marigolds strung by hand, the scent of sandalwood, and a priest who hesitated for a moment before beginning the vows. Mira wore a pale yellow saree, the same one she had worn to her sister's wedding decades ago. Aryan, in a plain kurta, looked not like a groom, but like a son returning home after too long. When the rituals ended, applause was muffled by uncertainty. No one knew whether to congratulate or console. The villagers watched from a distance, unsure whether they'd just witnessed a love story or a puzzle they still couldn't solve. That night, as they sat inside Mira's tiny living room, walls still cracked, the fan still squeaky, Aryan finally spoke. "You once fed me when I hadn't eaten in 3 days, he began, voice low. "I was just a boy, hiding under your broken cart during a thunderstorm. You found me, trembling. I thought you'd scream or beat me like others had." Mira's eyes widened, her hand frozen around her cup of tea. "But you gave me food," he continued. "You wrapped me in a sari and sat beside me until I stopped crying. You didn't ask where I came from. You just said, 'No child should sleep afraid.'" The memory flickered in her eyes. Vague, like a half-forgotten dream. "I ran away that night," Aryan said. "But I never forgot your face. Or your voice. Years later, when I built my company, I sent men to search for you. They said you'd moved, lost your family, sold everything." Mira's lip quivered. That little boy, with bruises on his back. He nodded, eyes glinting. "That was me." Silence filled the room, thick as smoke. "I swore," Aryan whispered, "that if I ever found you again, I'd give you the life you deserved. You showed me kindness when the world was cruel. And I've built everything, with your warmth stitched into my memory." Tears ran down her cheeks, quiet and unforced. "I don't love you like a man loves a woman, Mira," Aryan said gently. "This marriage, it isn't about romance. It's about honor. About protecting the one person who showed me what love truly was. I want to take care of you, not as a husband in the traditional sense, but as someone who owes you his very life." Mira covered her mouth, overcome by emotion. "I thought I was forgotten," she murmured. "You were the beginning of everything," he said. That night, under the modest roof that once sheltered a starving child, the woman who gave without reason, and the man who never forgot, finally understood each other. The world still gossiped. But inside that quiet home, 2 souls sat in peace, bound not by tradition, but by something far older and far deeper. The seasons shifted quietly in Ranakit. Monsoon washed over the village, painting the fields a lush green, and Mira's modest home bloomed with the color of marigolds and memories. The whispers had faded. The skepticism softened. In time, the village stopped asking why Aryan Malhotra married Mira Devi, and began to admire how he stood by her. Mira, once a forgotten widow with fading footsteps, now sat on a cushioned bench under the neem tree, her back straighter, her smile softer. Aryan visited weekly, sometimes with planners and architects, sometimes with nothing but time and silence. They shared meals, watched birds, and spoke less of the past, more of the present. When asked why he stayed so involved, Aryan would say, "I'm not giving her a better life. She already lived one. I'm simply writing her ending in gold." The media lost interest. But Aryan didn't. He quietly bought the surrounding land, built a new community kitchen under Mira's name, and established a girls' education trust titled *the Mira Foundation, for the ones who give without asking. He never advertised it. He didn't have to. Children came to her now, not just for sweets, but to hear stories. Women sought her advice, young men asked for blessings. And Mira, who had spent decades in silence, had become the heart of the village. One evening, as the sun melted behind the hills, Mira clutched Aryan's hand. Her voice, still firm, held a gentleness laced with finality. "I think I'm ready to rest." Aryan's eyes glistened, but he nodded. That night, she passed away in her sleep. Peacefully. With the window open, a breeze tugging at her faded sari, and a smile still etched on her face. The funeral was unlike any other. Thousands came. Not for the shock of her story, but for the warmth of her legacy. Aryan stood quietly, head bowed, as villagers placed marigolds at her feet. His grief was silent, but vast. In the months that followed, Aryan completed what he had started. He built a school at the edge of the village, its walls inscribed with one sentence. Kindness, when given freely, lives forever. He visited less, but never truly left. Her picture remained on his desk. Her words echoed in every speech he gave. And whenever someone asked why he never married again, he would smile and say, "Because the greatest love of my life wasn't romantic, it was redemptive." Mira's story, once misunderstood, became legend. And Aryan? He continued to build. Not just companies, but lives. Not just wealth, but meaning. In the quiet of that hill village, where goats still wandered and temple bells still rang, a love once questioned had transformed into something eternal, a bond not born of passion, but of profound gratitude.